Hello class, I just wanted to give you a real quick overview on how you need to access your labs and submit them for this course. There can be a little bit of confusion in the beginning for students on what worksheets to submit and where you turn them in, so I want to walk you through it. The first thing you need to do is you need to go to assignments. When you open assignments, you're going to open your lab set. Now I'm going to skip over to lab set 3 here. In the lab set directions, it will show you what lab number this covers. The lab set is not the lab number. So in lab set 3, we will be covering lab 6 from the biology manual. And within lab 6, we're going to be doing experiments 1, 2, 3, and 4. Some lab sets will have you submitting material from 2 different labs. Some lab sets will have you submitting material from 1 lab, but it does not cover all the experiments offered in that lab. So it's very critical that you read this first sentence and make sure you're working through the correct lab. You'll know you're not working through the correct lab though if you scroll down and open the lab set worksheet. This is the document that you need to submit. This is the only thing that I will be grading. If you submit any other worksheets or materials, they will not be graded. It's very important that you download the worksheet and you open it up because there are questions in here that ask you to take photos at certain times within your experiment. And if you are missing those photos, you can lose an entire letter grade. So you need to read through this prior to conducting your experiment so that you know when you need to properly document your work. Now, each of these worksheets has the lab number that you can find in the corresponding biology lab manual. So if we go over here, after you have read through the assignment directions and downloaded the worksheet, you can go over here and open up the biology lab manual. And I already have it open to lab 6, but I'll show you what the whole manual looks like. Alright, so we would go here to lab 6. And in this case, it has you doing all 4 experiments. Before you start any of the experiments, you need to read the introduction and work through it. There are questions in here that you need to answer. There are videos you need to watch, and there are resources, extra resources that you can use. These are what will help you answer the questions in the lab worksheet. This is where you can find all the answers. You really shouldn't have to go looking around on the internet for the answers to the lab questions. All the material you need should be right there. For the first experiment, you'll see the title of the experiment. This will correspond with the worksheet. You'll see the same title in the worksheet, so just make sure you're following along. At the bottom of each of these experiments in the lab manual, you can click here to download basically a digital copy of this. And sometimes that's handy because if you can print this out, if you have easy access to a printer, it's nice to be able to cross off the procedures that you have completed and to be able to hand write in the data as you collect it. And then you can always transfer it to your lab worksheet and type it in later. So it's kind of a nice way to keep track of your work as you're doing it. As you work through the different experiments, each one will have one of those worksheets at the bottom. So if you want to work through them as if they were a checklist, that is a nice way to do it. So when you start to work through your experiment, just make sure you keep an eye on the actual lab set worksheet that you need to turn in so that you can take photos at the proper time and record the correct data. And then you'll need to answer some of these questions separately from actually conducting the lab. These lab manuals have, very handy notes about mistakes, so make sure you read through all of that very carefully. And of course, if you run into any issues or problems, you can always send me a message, and I might have some separate tips for you, or we can work something out if there is an issue with materials. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your lab set worksheets.